Hello, friends, neighbors, countrymen, citizens, dweebs, creepers everywhere. WeatherBrains episode number 537. This is the pre-show for May 2, May Day +1. And we are gathering our guests together. If you're new here, the actual show begins maybe in 10 minutes. Maybe 15, maybe 30, who knows. If you like an organized program, you won't like this one. Brian, you look tense. What's wrong? Have a hard day?
Everything.
Everything's bad.
I'm trying to hide the fact that I'm a meteorologist.
Oh, are you embarrassed by our profession?
Yes, I am. We're acting like
way?
a bunch of idiots.
Ooh, I smell a good show.
60-day, 90-day forecasts that they claim are accurate, which they aren't. Meteorologists issuing their own warnings, which is stupid.
Yes. This is going to be a good show. Mark it right here. This might be one of the greatest shows ever because everybody's going to go on tirades. We might get into fist fights. There could be physical violence before the show is over.
I want you to see what's in front of me right here. You see this? This is my verification of the 45-day forecast for my town for May 13th and 14th. And so far, they oscillate all over the place. Their temperatures vary by as much as 12 degrees on highs and 11 degrees on lows, at least so far. They vary from a half inch of rain to nothing. And we're still 2 weeks away.
Wow. It's going to be a good
Hey,
show.
I consulted the AccuWeather forecast for my trip to Bermuda. It says it's going to rain, so I'm counting on rain.
All right.
Well, I think you should cancel. I mean, if it says it's going to rain, why go? I mean,
I thought about
I want to check. Are they doing Christmas weather yet? Can you get the Christmas Eve forecast?
I don't think it goes quite that far.
Yeah, I think they're only out to like
Are
November.
you flying or
probably got the Thanksgiving forecast?
So
No,
the
we're
point
flying.
is, come on. There's no skill. Why not? Why not do a 10-year forecast? You know,
You could. It's called climatology.
Yeah.
Just
Bingo.
Do a 10-year forecast. I mean, it's as big as, it's just as idiotic as a 90-day forecast. I mean, there's no difference. If you're going to do something outrageous, just do it, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, these guys are pushing this with a straight face.
I know it. You remember the old days when they had the, what was it, what were those salesmen they had? What did they call those guys? Snake oil salesman. This is just a modern day version.
Yeah, this is going to be a good show here. We're going to talk about 90-day forecasts. We're going to talk about
outbreaks that people are offended by.
Yeah, people are offended. PDS watches that offend people.
I like your new program, James.
Do what now?
I like your new program.
What's that?
The Troll of the Week. That's pretty good.
Troll.
Oh,
yeah.
I love that. Was that not you that did that?
Yes. No, I got out. I was at a school and I got out, and the first guy says, it's this standard line. Must be nice making good money when you're wrong half the time. Usually they say you're wrong 90% of the time, but at least this guy said half the time. And I looked up the guy's Twitter account. He has 2 tweets. One was a little troll message to Al Roker, and one was a troll message to me. And he has no followers, none. I actually looked him up.
Probably in his mom's basement holding a cat over his shoulder.
I looked him up because he said he was in Jasper, Alabama. So I searched the guy's name in
I wouldn't mess
Jasper,
with
Alabama. And
that's Walker County. Okay, conversation over with.
Yeah, be careful, James. You never know what you're going to get into there.
Lawnmowers blow up when you criticize.
Apparently, the guy's like in his 60s or 70s. He's like an old guy.
So he's been around long enough to have an opinion.
And you think you do better than that if you're an old guy. If you're going to troll somebody, goodness, you can be better than that. But somebody probably taught him.
Jealous.
He probably went to these shuffleboard conventions and prune pageants where somebody had a little class on how to get on the tweeter. So, he took a break from the shuffleboard sessions to try to get on the tweeter and troll the local weather guy.
I got to get to one of those prune pageants one of these days.
James, you should be careful. You're going to give shuffleboard a bad name here. I actually think shuffleboard is a very respectable game.
Oh my goodness!
Oh boy, Brian,
showing your age here, Brian.
Hey, I had a shuffleboard court on my driveway.
Don't tell me now you're wearing Bermuda shorts, black socks, and dress shoes underneath that desk.
No, I'm not wearing pants at all.
We got a show title, ladies and gentlemen.
And it's black socks and sandals, not dress shoes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, sandals. Yeah, I'm not wearing pants at all. That apparently is our show title.
You mentioned
Aubrey, I apologize.
No, I am loving this. Keep going.
She's used to it. She was a bartender at Applebee's, so she knows.
She's trying to get me to stand up.
Oh, hey.
Oh no! Please no! Please no!
She's dealt with so many old jabronis, creepers in her life. I guess it is.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're going to do that job,
Aubrey, at no time in this entire program do I intend to offend you.
Oh no, not at all. I don't take offense. I am very popular amongst these 40 to 65-year-olds.
Oh.
Yeah, you attract the creepers.
James,
but I do like shuffleboard, though.
Yes.
I've played.
James was mentioning the Twitter. I cannot believe I have like almost 3,700 followers on Twitter. That's amazing.
That's a great number, man. That's a big number. I like that. I wonder, Ron, my troll buddy. No, he didn't follow you. He only follows me, and there's one other account he follows. I think it was Alabama football.
Ah,
there you go.
He's just jealous.
RTR.
Roll Tide, baby. Roll Tide.
I'm a hater, man. So let's see here. Did y'all see Ginger Z on Dancing with the Stars a minute ago?
Oh, how was she? I didn't get a chance to see it.
I've never seen anything like that. They were all goo-gooing and gaga-and, and she got all tens, and I mean, they were crying, and I mean, goodness.
All right.
That's awesome.
I like, what do you win if you win this thing? Is it?
I don't know, but I'm pulling for her to win.
Now, is that like a live show, or is it recorded in advance?
I have no idea.
I believe it's live.
I think it's live.
I believe it's live.
I think she should come on right after Dancing with the Stars and be on the show one night.
Oh, are you kidding me? She's got to fly back to New York be
on Good Morning America tomorrow.
I don't know how she does it.
I don't know how she does it either. Well, she did say something, Aubrey, about how they were letting her have Monday and Tuesday off.
Okay, well that's better.
So I mean that at least is sounds like it's doable, but oh my gosh,
but still weekly you're flying back across the country.
Yes,
it's exhausting. It is exhausting. It would not work for me.
And she rehearses 5 hours a day. Holy mackerel!
And she's a new mom. I mean,
yes.
I can't even take care of the husband and bear.
Yes, I can't either. By the way, I loved your drone footage.
You love my what? Oh, the drone footage?
Yeah,
wasn't that awesome?
That's cool. That's awesome. Yeah.
I wasn't even in town yesterday, but that's another story.
What? You're out of town when the weather?
I wasn't even in town yesterday, and I was very upset.
Yeah, that drone footage is really cool.
We don't get stuff like that very often, or at least not things you can really photograph like that.
Yeah, we had a big series of thunderstorms on Saturday.
They had a tornado warning outside of La Platte, Maryland, earlier today.
Uh-oh. That's a famous place.
Haven't heard any reports yet, but it was definitely very hook-like on radar.
I saw that, Aubrey.
It was pretty intense.
Impressive.
That's the place that had the...
They had the F4,
yep.
Right.
Yep,
yeah.
And they also had some major hail. Looks like several reports over 2 inches.
Didn't that tornado get downgraded, though, Bill?
Yeah, I think. I don't know. It was an F5 that got downgraded to an F4, I think.
I thought it got downgraded to a 3 or a 2.
Is that right, Rick? Do you remember?
It may have gone down to a 3. I know that was the beginning of whether the QRTs, the quick response teams, to assist offices with some of those higher end surveys. So yeah.
Well, and I understand the problem, because when you looked at the house that they were basing the F4 or F5 rating on, the problem was the house was totally destroyed and not one shingle was out of place. That's like practically physically impossible.
Yeah, very, very
because the house was not attached to its foundation.
Wow.
Makes a difference.
Yep.
Makes a big difference.
I just got this lady just uploaded this drone video of the tornado, the storm that was south of Washington. This is good stuff. It's a very, very well organized storm.
Is that on Twitter?
About to put it on my Facebook page, and
I mean, we even had a shelf cloud over Harrisonburg, so I mean, today was not as organized as they were yesterday, but some pretty good storms.
never figured out how to share like an individual post on a Facebook page. If you go to share, it does not let you copy the link to that. It does if you're on your phone, though. It does.
Yeah, that's
but
what
on a computer, it doesn't.
That's how I had to get the link to forward it to Brian. Was I had to copy it from my phone and send it over.
Crazy, because that's what I'm doing now is copying this link because it's going to be my pick of the week. That's a very, very impressive storm. So let's see here. How do I do this?
Oh, wow.
I'm going to click on...
If all else fails, just email it to me or something.
Let's see if that went in the chat room.
Oh, I see it. Wow.
All right, let's see. Hello, welcome to our television viewers. I apologize. I typically greet you at the bottom of the hour. It's 32 after. We are about to start the show. Rick, Bill, do I need to invite our guest, or you got that?
I did, but you better, James, because he didn't obviously follow the link that I sent him. So
drop
invite him.
Drop his email into the chat room there, and I will do that.
I will.
Yeah, I'm Kevin,
I
man.
Don't see your link there. Which chat room did you put it in?
I don't know. Probably the wrong one.
It didn't go in the group chat. It went in the other.
It went into some kind of
the message thing, or the I don't know what it's called.
On the live chat for the live Big Brains.
No,
I don't see it there either.
I'll send it to you by email.
Okay.
Hangout tab for.
Yeah, it's a Hangout thing.
Yeah, there's a separate.
Oh, is it in? Oh, I see it. I got it, James. I got it.
All right.
I got so many windows open, I didn't know where to look.
Yeah, no, it's very confusing here. All right.
Well, I got two 37-inch monitors, and I got screens everywhere. So
No need to brag, Brian.
Yeah,
I'm
really.
not. It's just fact. It's fact. It's fact. Ooh, that's a storm. Ooh.
All right, so I've invited our guest from the Weather Channel.
Did you get the note from Nate that says he's out tonight?
Yeah, I saw that. Baby wrangling. You know, he's in. They have a new infant home from the hospital. A few extra days and doing well, though. They're thankful for that. He'll be back next week, hopefully. But I can understand. No, but this thing with Ginger, how in the world can you have a new baby and turn around and perform like that on that national show? That is just insane. At some point, she's going to crash. I mean, at the end of the May book, when this show's over, she needs to take like 3 weeks and just go fishing or go hang out on the beach or something. I mean, goodness gracious. I'm getting postpartum depression just looking at this. I mean,
Show title.
Just everybody needs to go vote for her tonight.
Now, Kevin missed the best show title before you got on here. I'm not wearing any pants.
No, I was here.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
He's just refusing.
Kevin wasn't impressed.
And I'm not the one that said it.
No, I came. You guys were. I missed the beginning of the guy that took off after James. You guys were fully involved in that, and I couldn't contribute.
It was a 5-alarm fire by that point, Kevin.
Yeah. So I invited him using that email address.
I had a great hangout with him. He was awesome, and he started the call. He was kind of like, "Oh, he's calling me. All right, I'm going to mute for a second. I'll be right back."
I'll tell you what. We'll just start the show. Niziol. Let me try one more thing. Thomas.
Hey, hold on a second.
Niziol.
Got to silence my mute.
I see a Tom with that last name. He's wearing a tie. I'll invite him. Maybe he's the wrong guy. Actually, I think we should invite random people to be on the show. I think that would be fun one week. Just do random WeatherBrains night where, I just start typing in some odd characters and invite whoever shows up on there. Let's get this sucker started. We'll let Bill figure out how to get our guest online because we have many things to discuss. So here's track 1. There's track 2. And here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This is WeatherBrains episode number 538 for the 2nd of May, 2016. Welcome to the show. This is the weekly show that is all about weather. We're glad you're here. We have some very interesting things to talk about tonight. I sense this might be the greatest show we've had in a long time because Brian went on a tirade before the show started. Brian, the veins are bulging out on your neck already, and we haven't even started.
Shh! I'm trying to be a closet meteorologist. I don't want to come out for fear somebody will think I'm doing something weird.
You're embarrassed by our weather enterprise.
I am. I'm absolutely appalled at what's going on. All this stuff. 90-day detailed forecasts. Outbreaks that aren't outbreaks. Outbreaks that disappoint people.
Got it.
I'm disturbed. Meteorologists on television putting out their own warnings. This is ludicrous. And I don't like it. So there.
Does anyone have a baton that I can pass to?
The new accelerant is.
How
I'm not
does
an
he still
accelerant.
sound cheerful when he's angry?
Thank you. I honestly think our profession is going down the toilet. It really
down
is.
the tubes, right down the tubes. All right. Well, Kevin Selly, have you recovered from being bashed?
Oh, you're. I said on a note. Yeah, he's referring to 2 shows ago now, the Chaser show, and there was some discussion of doing a PDS show, and I said in an email to the group that I was afraid because after the Chaser show, I felt like I was a little misunderstood, but I'm scared because I was. What was the order of? First, I was called old, and then I was called a robot, and then I was told I was just the man covering for the man who was covering for the man. And
wow, that's pretty deep.
Someone threatened to organize some sort of chaser posse and come down here and beat me up. So I'm afraid.
Cool.
How has it come to this? I mean, oh boy.
So I'm just going to be nice from now on.
No, that's why people listen to the show. They want to hear you go off and just get angry and.
Didn't you hear that I was threatened?
Well, come on. Are you a man? Are you going to sit down and just back off and be a weenie? Or are you going to stand up and be strong and state your beliefs and not back off?
I'm going for the weenie.
Oh, boy.
and there's your show title.
There's the show title right there.
Yeah, that's it. Going for the weenie. So, Aubrey, I hope things are calm in your neighborhood, although you've had some storms today, big ones, huh?
Yeah, we did have some storms, but I do want to say that, Kevin, you do know that we've gotten emails of people who appreciate your accelerant-ism.
I understand that. And I'm going to make people even further mad because I'm going to suspend the trackies, too. With all due respect to Robert Kyle, who sent us, we only used his intro that he sent us last week, but I feel like I'm just being a little mean. I mean, these people have been pushed into the tracking thing, I think in many cases against their will, and I just don't want to be mean about it. It's a nice guy.
What happened to Kevin this week?
Now,
Yes.
WeatherBrains is tracking the tracker.
What have you done with Kevin, and where is he?
Well, thanks to Robert for producing that. It was cute, but so.
What happened? Kevin's like he's off his meds or something. What's the matter with him?
I mean, I have been crazy on all this stuff for a while, but you last week, you expressed, I think, James, it was something last week, some concern about the model going forward, and Brian's concerned about the model going forward. I mean, this is under a lot of stress. This model is under tremendous stress. The broadcast model, the weather model, and I think a lot of these horses are out of the barn. So I don't know that it makes a ton of sense to get all wound up about it, especially when passions are running so high. I joke around about what I got 2 weeks ago, which was probably 0.1% of the heat that Rick took. But I didn't really know how deep that thing was, because I was just trying to speak up for Rick, and he didn't ask me to, and he doesn't need me to. But I made a few comments, and I got those comments that I mentioned. Somebody said I needed to apologize. Well, I didn't come out against chasers at all. I just made a comment about a couple of, and didn't identify them, the people that were coming out after Rick. And then one guy expressed disappointment in me, saying that I really didn't know much about journalism, and I went, what? I'm a meteorologist. I'm not a journalist, so I don't really know how to respond to that. So, but I think we're under a fair amount of stress. I think it is. So,
I know I was shocked in that chaser episode thing. I didn't even know that it was a big deal to identify yourself as a chaser or a spotter.
Right.
To me, that I don't even distinguish the difference. It doesn't matter to me. I'm just looking for good reports. I mean, I didn't even know that was a big deal. And yeah, we are on the edge. I mean, it's like everybody in the Weather Enterprise wants to fight.
That's right.
Like everybody's got a cob up their backside with birds, and they are just looking to beat somebody up.
Right.
And it is just horrifying. It is unbelievable. And this is not just one segment. This is TV people, chasers and spotters and weather service and private sector researchers, academia. We're all wanting to fight here. And
I think it's a byproduct of all of this stuff. That I think it's a byproduct of social media, and I'm not going in that direction. I know there's a value, and the reports come in.
Sorry,
but there is a stress level that has been achieved, and it's being exactly. This will lead us into the PDS discussion, and maybe Rick knows more about this, but there was some suggestion, as I understood it, that there was, well, I don't know if it happened or there were people suggesting that the 6-day outlook thing, or the thing that came out for that big day last week, 6 days ahead, that there might have been some curiosity level on the part of the social scientists as to what that was going to do. And yes, we have to alert emergency managers and things like that. But I saw those suggestions going by. Did we do this as an experiment or not? Well, I don't know. But the net effect of it, and we were in that PDS watch here in Wichita Falls, and I intentionally don't, hype that stuff several days out like none of us do. But I was fairly reserved in my television comments and so on and so forth. But the stress level the day before, and especially the day of, in the town was very high. Mm-hmm. And I kind of feel like we're at this juncture where, we can't put the genie back in the bottle on the social media thing, and so this stuff spreads. And I don't know if we're going to put the genie back in the bottle, but I don't think we can. But the stress level is rising. And then we talk about the stress level in the broadcast sector for the weather people. You look at that poor kid that took his life a few weeks ago. Now, clearly he had some other problems in his world, but I think we've all heard the story about he posted in the broadcast meteorologist group on Facebook, which is like a 1,300 person group, and he was just down. But I think the stress level of what the owners are doing and what's required, and the stress that comes back from these outbreaks, and the stress that comes from working on the social media, I don't think any of us would have told. And this goes to what you printed the other day, James, or wrote the other day. I don't think anybody would have told that kid that the solution to his problem was to go and work more. That just was not an option. I don't think a good one. So anyway, I think the stress level has risen. So but I'm not getting wound up about it.
So we have a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about the PDS day, what went right, what went wrong. We're going to talk about the anger within the Weather Enterprise, and all kind of stuff here. But Bill, please introduce our guest before he totally hangs up and runs.
Yeah, I think he was already scared before we even talked to him, because when I got him on the Hangout today, James, he said, I guess you're going to want to talk about the naming of winter storms. And I said, no. This is a kindler, gentler
Yeah, we're going to be nice and polite and courteous.
Exactly. That's what I told him. So everybody live up to that. Live up to that advanced billing. But tonight's guest weather brain is the winter weather expert at the Weather Channel. He's Tom Niziol. Tom, welcome to the show.
Hey, I'm glad to be here, everybody, and I do want to let you know that here at the Weather Channel we're celebrating our anniversary, if you're not aware of that. It was back on May 2nd, 1982 that this enterprise took off, and look where it's gone from there. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. I can't even believe that, because I didn't even have cable on that day in 1982 and had to go to a friend's house and sit and watch the Weather Channel for hours. That really tells you what kind of weather nerd I am, Tom.
Oh yeah, and I was watching right from the beginning, and I had a 32-year career in the National Weather Service. So I briefed myself every day before I went into work by watching the Weather Channel, and I bet a lot of you do too.
Yep.
There's no question. So
here's one thing that I think we need to do to start healing. Okay. I think whoever runs the Weather Channel now should reach out to John Coleman. And agree to stop fighting. Just stop fighting, because they picked this one issue that and that's the other thing that bothers me, that one issue defines you. You look back at Bill Gray, who died recently, whose career was just unbelievably positive, and he affected so many people as a professor, and his products and services, and people define him by this one issue, and I think the Weather Channel and John Coleman should kiss and make up, and just agree to disagree on certain things. So but when I think back on the Weather Channel cranking up, I'll agree. I mean, look, I was a young guy on television back then, and I thought it was fantastic. I watched the thing all the time. I mean, it was like awesome. And now you look back on those days, and that John's been banned. And there's all this just crazy stuff. I think we should look back and celebrate those days, because those were the glory days, to me, of the Weather Channel. And by the way, Tom, so what was the guy, the Weather Channel main guy we had on there in that set one night? Remember the guy they had the lights turned down on him?
Oh, that was David Clark.
He was sitting in there, and they turned the lights out on him, and he fired whoever did that. So
he chopped a lot of heads that night.
We know it wasn't Tom that turned off the lights.
No.
I'm sorry, Bill. That just crossed my mind.
No, this is good stuff. That's why we're here. So Tom, this is obviously your second career. Take us on a walk through your first career.
Boy, I'll tell you guys, old dogs can learn new tricks, and I was on my way to retirement, 32 years in the National Weather Service, all at the weather office in tepid Buffalo, New York. I've loved snow from day one, but I was, as I say, on my way to retirement, and I got a call from a guy by the name of Stu Ostro down here, who
friend of the show.
Yeah, called me and said they were looking for a winter weather expert, and they heard my name tossed around, so they wanted to invite me down, and I had no idea whatsoever that I would even have a chance at working on air at the Weather Channel, but I never saw it. So I said, what the heck? It's a free ride down. I get to see it. They paid for my trip. I came down here, interviewed, and 5 weeks later they offered me a position, and I got to leave management and go back into studying and working with meteorology on a daily basis. And oh man, it's like hitting the jackpot. It's been a dream come true, so I enjoy it.
So you must have impressed them in that interview. Talk about that interview and what they asked you and what your answers were, Tom.
It was interesting because I came down here, and again, I do not have an advanced degree in meteorology, so my theoretical background is not all that impressive. But and I indicated that right from the beginning, but they looked at my resume and they knew what I had done. I had worked 32 years in snow and knew winter weather. I was lucky enough to work the Olympics in Salt Lake City and do a few other things, and got to go out to Boulder and NCAR a number of times, and just one of these people who have an extreme curiosity about weather. So they liked what I was able to provide. I'd never done TV before, but they asked me if I ever did public speaking. I did a lot of that. So lo and behold, they offered me a position. I retired on December 31st in 2011, and on January 4th, I loaded my van and drove to Atlanta. So it's been fun ever since.
So Tom, this is a good gig in the winter, and what do you do during the summer? Do you still work, or do you have the summer off?
Guys and gal, this is the best gig you could ever get. So yeah, I'm semi-retired during the summer. I'll be loading my van up, throwing a canoe on top of it, and heading up to do some canoeing and backpacking up in the Northeast to start off my summer. So that's not bad, but it's been a challenge. I mean, if you think about it, and for everybody out there that's a weather geek, think about working with weather in your own backyard. So I worked for the National Weather Service in charge of a small area of upstate New York, and then had to go to the Weather Channel and work with weather on a national scale on a daily basis. So it's been a really interesting education for me, and a challenge. I had to spin up real quickly to understanding everything from the Puget Sound Convergence Zone to Denver's upslope snow to the wedging that goes on in the southeast to nor'easters, and that's been a lot of fun.
So you were around for the Snowmageddon a couple of years ago. Talk about that event.
Oh, wow. This is a guy who 6 to 8 inches of snow in Buffalo is called a dusting, and I love it. So I got down here, and everybody up north always says, well, they don't know how to drive in winter down in the south. And I had quite an education because I understood what the cost-benefit analysis is when you're working with having resources in the south to battle winter weather. You certainly aren't going to have what you have up north. And the Atlanta situation was fascinating because we had this great combination. And when I look at weather catastrophes, as you all do, it's a combination of all these factors that come together at the wrong place and the wrong time. Individually, a lower temperature, snowfall, whatever it might be, they may cause some problems. But man, if you put those all together, you can have what happened in Atlanta. And I'll just briefly go through that again with you one more time. We were looking at 1 to 3 inches of snowfall here. To me, that didn't mean anything, but I was told a little later after the event occurred that at that time Atlanta was the owner of, I believe, a grand fleet of 8 snowplows for the entire city. We have that in 2 blocks up north in the Buffalo area, and really did not have the resources to pre-treat or treat roads when we get into this situation. From a meteorological standpoint, the temperature that morning before the event was about 30 degrees. As the day went on, the temperature kept dropping. By 1 p.m., the temperature was down to 27 degrees, and snow started coming down. And I looked out the window of the Weather Channel. I was getting off shift, and I noticed what was happening on the roadways. Cars were going over that fresh snow that was falling, and because the temperature was dropping through the mid-20s, the pressure of the tires would melt the snow, and it immediately started freezing up. And that's about 1 p.m. when everybody panicked, and everybody left work, everybody left school, and we had tens of thousands of people out on the roadway. The temperature continued to drop through the afternoon. By 4 o'clock, it was down to 24 degrees, and the entire area was a skating rink. And for those of you who don't know Atlanta, as I didn't when I first came here, I had a rude awakening. You're not flatland here. You're in the foothills of the Appalachians, so there's a lot of hills. And I remember getting back to my apartment and having to work with Google Maps for a 3-hour period to try to vector a friend of mine to get home from where they were working that day because so many roads were blocked by traffic that just couldn't get up the hills because of the ice. So it's amazing. And the message I had for my friends up north was people can drive, most people can drive in winter weather down here if the resources are there and you have the plows and you have the ability to manage ice and snow. But I defy anyone from up north in their best four-wheel drive vehicle and their best driving practices to drive in the type of icing that occurred in that event.
We're vindicated, Brian Peters. Did you hear that?
I heard that. Yes.
So Tom, talk about your forecast, the National Weather Service and Atlanta's forecast in the situation. Critique those and talk about the social science response of the residents of Atlanta.
Yeah, with a few days before that, the big question mark was, one, how much snow we were going to get, down here, and two, what the temperatures were going to do that day. And the models were relatively good in a general sense at predicting that there was going to be some winter precipitation here in Atlanta. I remember going over to my boss, Chris Samsuri, and talking to him about the fact that we might get a little bit of snow down here, and it probably will occur during the afternoon before we get into rush hour. And he just looked at me and shook his head, and I said, well, what's the problem? He said, you don't understand it, do you? And I said, what do you mean? And he said, just the mention of wintry precipitation in the south puts everyone into a panic. And so trying to get that message out and provide that message and that information was an eye-opening experience to me. What was interesting is the response that came down from the city officials here in the Atlanta area. The National Weather Service had upgraded to warnings early in that day. The information was out there. And I don't think that everybody understood what this combination of impacts, in particular snow coming down with a falling temperature in the south during the daytime, what that combination would result in. And even I was surprised how quickly the roads iced up. Mm-hmm. And when you're dealing with tens and tens of thousands of people, and anybody that knows Atlanta and has tried to drive down here during higher volume traffic, to put that many people out onto roadways, it doesn't take much to get a few jackknife tractor trailers and other types of occurrences on entrance and exits to the main interstates to literally bring everything to a standstill. I walked to work 2 days after that event. I only lived about a mile and a half from the Weather Channel, but it literally looked like Armageddon out there. I mean, walking down along near the I-75 corridor and hearing semi-tractor trailers idling and cars just strewn all over the place in every direction. It was a Twilight Zone episode for sure. Yeah.
So Tom, talk for a minute about, you mentioned those challenges going from local to national. Talk about some of those challenges and what you've dealt with and how you've handled it and some of the surprises you've run into along the way.
Boy, it's fascinating, everybody. And you know yourself, when you're working with local TV, you have a good rapport with your people out there, your viewers. You're able to explain the local effects. You're able to get that information across. It was interesting for me to go from that local area of working with just a portion of upstate New York and now being on camera and being the voice to warn and to let people know about the impacts from winter weather across the nation. I still wear the National Weather Service on my sleeve, and our mission there was to protect lives and property. And coming over to the Weather Channel, when I first came here, one of the first people I spoke with was one of my idols, Dr. Greg Forbes, and who I think is an American treasure. His ability to break down the most critical aspects of severe weather and in seconds be able to tell the public to take cover. I think he has saved many, many lives. And when I spoke to him, he felt that was the most gratifying part of the job, even on a national scale here, is to know that, as all of you know who are on broadcast television, to know that the information you provide to that viewer could save that viewer's life. And as you do, I take that very seriously. So going to a national level and working with weather from around the country at that level, that's still and always will be in the back probably in the forefront of what I do on air.
So James, is it the kinder, gentler WeatherBrains going to be easier on Torcon, or are you going to continue with your crusade against Torcon?
No. I don't back
Oh, you're not kinder and gentler. Sorry, you go back to sleep.
We can be just kind about it, but you don't back down off what you believe. Okay, but we can be. You treat people that disagree with you with propriety, decency, and respect. That's the way it should work here. And again, we're going to talk about proprietary indices, TV stations issuing their own warnings. We're going to talk about all
45-day forecasts.
90 day.
90-day forecast.
90 day.
We're going to talk about all this, and you know, Tom is like Rick. I mean, Tom's from the Weather Service. He's kind of like Dr. Marshall Shepard. You know, he's there, but he comes from a different background. So, no, we have many things to discuss here. It's going to be a wonderful discussion. Kevin is mellow. I'm mellow.
Yeah, you guys are.
I think the one guy that's going to blow up is Rick Smith. Rick is like a powder keg. The man he's been too kind, too soft-spoken, too respectful. One of these nights, Rick Smith is going to blow up, and it's going to be on this show, and I cannot wait.
And then he'll be the new storm expert at the Weather Channel.
There you go.
Hey, Rick, you're muted.
Yeah, he's still muted.
It's purposely muted, just in case.
That was the safety on right there.
And the safety, you have to count to 10 before it'll unmute. So
yeah.
There you go.
So Tom, you know, we all love the Weather Channel. We grew up with it, and different elements have issues with it. But talk about what it must be like to work in that environment. It has to be amazing.
It's fantastic, and I want to get to my impressions about how the Weather Channel has changed over the past decade or so as well. I really want to provide that to you. I will tell you that every day I walk through these doors, I kind of pinch myself. This is, and I mean this in the true sense of the word, it's Weather Geek Central. I get to come into a company where if you work here and you're not completely excited about the weather, and you may not feel like this is the best place to be or whatever, I'll tell you what, you can leave whenever you want, because there's 100 people knocking at the door that just would give their eye teeth to be in here. And once you get in here, the excitement is contagious. There are, first of all, you've got a whole bunch of experts here in their field, in their particular, you've got everyone from a Dr. Greg Postel and Dr. Greg Forbes to Michael Lowry, a storm surge expert in hurricane research, Brian Norcross, Stu Ostro. I can go on with the experts that work here. To come in on a daily basis and participate in the meteorology meeting that we typically hold at 8:30 each day is like going to a new seminar on meteorology on a daily basis. And so that has just been a tremendous, tremendous education for me. And then to have the excitement, like I get to sit next to Cantori, okay, and to watch that guy operate and to watch just how into the weather he is, it's infectious. So I can't say enough about how much I enjoy it, how much I learn here. But it's an amazing operation to see how they bring all of our meteorological briefing information into a news department that decides what our show is going to look like for the day. What are the major stories we cover from a weather standpoint on impacts across the United States? And it's just fascinating to see how that is built and how it eventually ends up on air.
So talk about some of the technology you get to use there. What's been a surprise to you? What's been new and unique and different, and how's it just to do that?
Well, I could say it's something really, really research oriented and high theoretical weather information and tools that we use. But I'm going to be honest with you about the most fascinating part of what we do on a national scale here is the ability to get all of this data and information on a real-time basis and turn it right around to the viewer. So, and it's our collaboration. This is what I love because I came from the National Weather Service. It's our collaboration with the rest of the weather industry working, and James, you'll love this, working as partners. Okay?
Yes.
Working as partners. And to me, it's always been transparent. When I've been on the government side, up where I came from in Buffalo, our rapport that we had with the local media was number one. We worked hand in hand together. Now, on a national scale, I'll tell you what, on any given day when I'm working at that desk, and some of you may be familiar with the chat rooms that are associated with the National Weather Service, where information that comes into those offices on how much snow is falling, where the hail is occurring, where roads may be flooded, on a real-time basis, we can monitor here at the Weather Channel and then are able to turn that information right around. I love the ability to get that data and send it right back out to the viewer. That is one thing that turns me on. The other thing that's amazing is just this huge explosion in video and cell phone images and all of that type of information that not only tells a story in a literary sense with a statement that goes out, but people can actually see what's going on in real time. And I always found that fascinating when I worked at the National Weather Service. My gosh, before I actually sat down and sent out a local storm report, that information was already being transmitted over the Weather Channel. And so now I see how that works, and I think that's really a neat part of the job.
Well, it's amazing to me what the Weather Channel did to the Weather Service with the Weather Star in the early '80s and all of that. That's just amazing because it made the Weather Service standardize a lot of what they were doing, right?
Yeah, it's fascinating, and finally, and I can say this, finally the Weather Service is coming around to actually not using all caps in their messages now.
Yay!
So even that old dog can learn a new trick there. But yes, I remember in working with the Weather Service, we had a lot of mandates that came down on how we would code the products that came out of each of our offices, and really didn't understand at first why it was being done that way. But for every cable viewer, that type of coding that was mandated for the government weather offices allowed places like the Weather Channel to take those specific forecasts for your area and send them down to each cable provider, and that just made it tailored that forecast so much better. I was a little disappointed working for the National Weather Service, and I don't know how many years ago it was now, when the Weather Channel decided to no longer use the National Weather Service forecasts and went to their own forecasts instead. That, being on the National Weather Service side, that was a little disappointing, but it was also good to see that the Weather Channel continued to work with using the radar analyses and using the warnings and all of that information that came out from the government offices to provide that type of notice for people on the impacts that could be affecting them.
Yeah, now many, many years ago, my friend here in this market, James and Brian know him really well. Of course, that's Jerry Tracy, who's at one of the other television stations, was sort of my mentor. And Jerry, of course, came from the Weather Channel. And when I had lunch with him for the first time ever back in 1988, he asked me a simple question. He said, "Bill, what do you think the most important part of the Weather Channel is?" And I said, easily it's the weather on the 8s. How important is that still in the management size there at the Weather Channel, and has that changed over time?
No, that's very important, and that is a product that I hope we will never see go away. And in fact, from our viewers as well, we get that same response, that weather on the 8s is an extremely important product, and of course it is. This is something people rely on. Typically on a network like ours, you're not, unless you're a real weather geek, you're not going to stay tuned for an hour and a half at a time. You're checking in to see what the weather is, and when you check in, if there's a special segment on explaining this snowstorm and why the Rockies are getting snow, that's great to watch, and I love when I can provide that information to the viewer. But they're coming to the Weather Channel very often to get that latest forecast, and so Weather on the 8s is a product that hopefully will always be here.
So you talked about some of the microclimes that you have to forecast for, Tom, and those are famous and interesting, but how did you get yourself up to speed in time to actually do that well?
A lot of reading, a lot of talking to various people that I knew in the Weather Service. I made calls to the office in Seattle, calls to the office in Reno, my friends in Denver, Salt Lake City, you can name it. spent a lot of time on the phone with Boston. So that, going through a lot, I had a thorough understanding of the general background of winter weather across the U.S., but it was those local effects. And as all of you are probably aware, winter weather is, and of course we're talking about this in May. Guys, you should have had me on in mid-January. Winter weather is a whole different animal. You know, tornadoes certainly and hurricanes and flash floods cause tremendous damage to structures and direct fatalities that can occur from that. Winter weather's main issue are the impacts on travel, road travel and air travel. And so when I first got to the Weather Channel, one of the first things I did was learn the interstates across the U.S. And I can tell you where the trouble spots are on I-90 through Snoqualmie Pass, or I-80 at Donner Pass, or I-70 going through the Eisenhower tunnels. I can rattle those off now. But the fact is, travel, both commercial travel and individual travel, is so highly impacted by winter weather that's the main story that I try to deal with when I'm communicating that forecast to the public.
So talk for a second about Paul Cosin, the guy who was before you,
yeah.
Tom, and what he meant to you, and what sort of inspiration he was for you.
Paul is a good friend of mine, and Paul helped me a lot in my in my transition over to the Weather Channel. I'd spoken to him. Of course, I've read and probably memorized both of the 2-volume edition of Northeast Snowstorms that he and another friend of mine, Louis Usolini, published. And you know, just watching Paul when I watched him on the Weather Channel and seeing the type of expertise that he provided and could communicate to the public was a real incentive to me to make sure that I really knew my game before I went on air and communicated the information as well. Paul, right now, for those of you who aren't aware, you know, Paul is back in NOAA in the National Weather Service, and he works the winter weather desk at NSAP. And, you know, there's nothing like coming on shift when I come on and go to read the winter discussion that comes out from Cosin, and I can tell that flavor as soon as I start reading the paragraphs in there of Paul's wonderful way to describe all of the parts of the atmosphere that come together to produce these winter storms. So it's fascinating. You know, give you just a couple of points here. People always ask me, what's the most difficult place to forecast for? You know, if any of you have done this for a number of years, my answer typically to that is the most difficult place is place you're forecasting for right now, right? Because you know, and there is some truth to that. But from a winter side, I think the two most difficult places are Denver and Boston, if you're talking about big population centers. And both of them we have issues with because of topography. In Denver, it's the front range of the Rocky Mountains. In Boston, it's the ocean and what we refer to as the coastal front in winter weather. And I find those two aspects of forecasting extremely frustrating and very humbling at times. Nor'easters are just amazing, you know, and we could talk about nor'easters all night long. And about, you know, just what has to come together to produce these monster storms, and how much snow they can produce for a metro corridor of over 50 million people.
And one thing you haven't talked much about, but you obviously live day in, day out for over 30 years, and that's lake effect snow. That's a huge deal.
Yeah, that's my game. When I first came up into Buffalo, I realized that there were a lot of forecast aids that had been developed locally to predict these mesoscale. I mean, these are events that are on the scale of a summertime thunderstorm in some aspects, but nothing had ever been published on it. So it was almost forbidden that a National Weather Service forecaster back in those days would do research. That was frowned upon. Oh my gosh! Back when I first started, your job was to put out a forecast, and if you were doing research on the side, the rest of the guys would give you a hard time. But I was this young whippersnapper upstart, and I decided to start publishing everything that I could on how to predict these small-scale events, and guys and gals, if you've never been in a lake effect snowstorm, it's amazing. So take your thunderstorm that's moving through Birmingham and producing heavy rain on one side of the town and nothing, it's sunny on the other, and just drop the temperature about 40 degrees. So you've got a major blizzard occurring on the south side of town, and it's clear skies on the north side. What's fascinating about that is it's just as important to predict or to tell the public where it is going to snow as where it's not going to snow. And this can greatly affect businesses. I can't tell you how many times in my career we put out winter storm warnings for the city of Buffalo, okay? It's not much different than the size of Birmingham, as an example, for the entire city of Buffalo. And on one part of the city, that snow band would stop. There literally would be a wall of snow. And all these businesses would be closed down because people wouldn't go out to the restaurants, wouldn't go out to shop, and wouldn't go out to do their commerce. And it would greatly impact, of course, the income for those businesses. So trying to predict the northern edge of the wall of snow and where that band was going to go was an extreme challenge. And as little as a 10-degree shift in the wind direction, okay? I mean, a 10-degree shift could move that band across the city 10 or 15 miles. So I found that fascinating. When I first started my career in early 1980s, very few there was not the resolution in the numerical forecast models to actually even identify the Great Lakes. And I always said that until we can get a numerical forecast model down to the resolution to actually take those lakes into consideration, we weren't going to make any additional strides in predicting lake effect snow. And nowadays we have amazing high-resolution models that can predict the movement of these snow bands, in many cases with very, very good success.
So if anyone wonders why the National Weather Service is in the Department of Commerce, I think you just summed it up nicely, Tom.
That would have a lot to do with it. I'm sure there were many other reasons originally, but certainly from a winter weather standpoint, commerce is tremendously affected by winter weather.
Now, one of the coolest things came out of the National Weather Service in Buffalo, and that's BuffKit. Talk about that product for a minute, and how many meteorologists use that every day?
Yeah, BuffKit is a tool that actually will take computer model information and break that data down into forecast soundings of the atmosphere for a number of locations across the United States. I worked very early on with a guy by the name of John Jensenius, who's now in the National Weather Service. He does a lot of the lightning safety now. John was in Washington at the National Center where the computers were back then, and there was this new model that had come out called the NGM model. And John and I were talking about something, and he mentioned to me, boy, if this goes across here and Louis Ussolini's listening, I'm probably getting in trouble for it, but this is fun stuff.
He might can suspend your pension, but that's about all he can.
There we go. So John said, hey, this model doesn't only produce maps of weather data at a 12-hour interval, like an 850 or 500 millibar chart every 12 hours. This information that's coming out from this model that you don't see also spits out hourly forecasts of different levels in the atmosphere, all of the information from temperature to wind direction to dew point and all of that on an hourly basis. I said to John, I got to have it. We got to have this in the field. So, well, we'll just say through some type of backdoor operations, we were able at that time to actually get that data and transfer the data across a 96 baud modem. Do you remember that, guys?
Yeah, that's what Brian's still using tonight.
It works
really absolutely, well. Yes. On the air with one right now.
There we go. So,
and stealing Wi-Fi from my neighbor.
That's the American way. So anyhow, we were getting this data, but it was reams and reams and reams of data. It was great information. And for lake effect snow to have forecasts on an hourly basis, I could then predict how the snow bands would move. But you can't just look at reams of data. So I began to develop, using my very, very primitive skills in basic computer programming, I developed some methods to graphically look at that data. And that was the origination of the buff kit toolkit that you know today. It didn't go very far, though, because I have very limited computer capabilities. But lo and behold, a couple of years after we got this off the ground and we're moving forward with it, this guy showed up at my office. Some of you may know him. His name is Ed Mahoney. He's in charge of the Warning and Decision Training Branch for the National Weather Service now out in Oklahoma.
Uh-huh.
Ed is an amazing person. He's one of these people that can do everything, do it well, and do it fast. Ed had programming skills, and for about a 1-year period in Buffalo, we had so much fun. Ed would come out every day from his office as a science officer and say, guys, I'd like to do something with BuffKit. And we would say, you know, Ed, we needed to show CAPE and to show thunderstorm potential. We'd like you to be able to do hourly lifted indices and show those on the computer. We'd like you to show us the probability for heavy rain events. Can you plot Corfiti vectors? I'm throwing all these things out there. Ed would look at us like any good programmer, and he'd say, I can do that. He'd run into his office, and about 3 hours later, he'd come out, and we'd get a new version of BuffKit. And over the period of about 6 months to a year, this homegrown computer program by forecasters, not by engineers, not by computer programmers, but by forecasters developed. And what you see today, some, I don't know, 20, 25 years later, is, you know, it's still there. A lot of us still use it. I certainly do.
That's just amazing. And Rick Smith is over there champing at the bit, getting our guest list up for the next several weeks. So thank you very much, Tom, for reminding us of those guests that we need to have on the show. So,
yeah.
Now, talk to us for a minute about BuffaloFlakes.com. That's your site. I know you probably haven't had much time to play with it very much in the past 4 years, but talk about it.
Yeah, so, you know, it's interesting being up there and living in Buffalo from my birth through all of these winter events. But one thing you tend to see is a lot of snowflakes. And I also, early on in my career, worked in atmospheric research for a company up in Buffalo. And some of the research we did involved aerosols and fogs. So I worked a lot with a microscope. And a few years ago, I put 2 and 2 together and was reading a book on a guy by the name of Snowflake Bentley, a gentleman from Jericho, Vermont, who back in the late 1800s got a camera and took pictures of snowflakes, was the grandfather of snowflake photography. I followed what he was doing, and with a microscope, a point-and-shoot camera, because I'm really cheap, and $1.68 worth of plumbing parts from the local hardware store, I was actually able to mount a camera on this microscope and would go out at night with little glass slides and collect snow crystals as they fell from the sky, slide them under the microscope, make sure you don't breathe, because if you do, they disappear quickly, and began to take pictures of snowflakes. And, you know, the more I did this, the better I got at it. And it's like panning for gold. It's like detecting with a metal detector and finding a prize. Every night I'd go out, I'd find different shaped snowflakes, because you know no snowflake is the same. And it was just it became an addiction, because it was a nightly process. I'd usually do it at night when the temperature was cold enough, of finding more and more beauty in Mother Nature. And that's what I love so much about nature. And I think all of us that have a weather background, I guess we're wired to just enjoy nature and to sometimes stop and see the beauty of nature. So there you go. So I've got a page there that has a lot of my photographs on it, and unfortunately I haven't been able to do that lately, because you don't get much opportunity in Atlanta to photograph snowflakes. So.
All right. So, Brian, I'm going to be opportunistic and take that as my pick of the week. How about that? I'll steal it from Tom before he even gets the chance. So, Tom, you're coming to us tonight from the Weather Underground cave. So if we're really good and James maybe puts a moratorium on this Torcon stuff, could we come over and borrow it one Monday night and do the show from there?
Well, I'll tell you what, guys. Let me see if I can just kind of move this over and show you our tap right here. I don't know if you can see the anemometer. Is that working? Can I spin that there?
Oh, I thought you meant a beer tap. I thought
well, that is a beer tap, and in fact, there's a cooler right underneath that. But
there we go. There we go. That's the secret, James.
We're only
man. Hey, yeah.
We're only allowed to have root beer here, but the weather cave, this is a great idea. This came from Mike Bettis. Mike is just an amazing meteorologist, and we wanted to do something where a little more laid back. We could take a little more time to talk about various aspects of the weather. We've got recliners here. We have question and answer sessions from our viewers that they call in, and it's a pretty neat place. And yeah, we're not far down the road from where a lot of you are, and it's an open invite to come down here and join us. I think you would
heard
really,
that, James. We're on the way. Get the van ready, Brian. We're on the way.
All right.
There you go.
Road trip.
Exactly.
I love it.
So one last question from me, Don. I know the other guys are, have been fascinated by what you've said to us tonight. But talk about some of the biggest events. What's the most memorable event you've ever worked?
Well, from the National Weather Service side, the biggest event I ever worked was a snowstorm that occurred in Buffalo back in October of 2007. It was a very, very early season snowfall event that hammered the Buffalo area with 24 inches of exceptionally heavy wet snow, and unfortunately it occurred at a time when there were still leaves on the trees. That event damaged approximately, by some accounts, 90% of the trees in Buffalo.
Wow.
It was an absolutely devastating storm. 10 miles south of the city there was green grass. 10 miles north of the city there was green grass. And through the city and immediate suburbs, there was 24 to 26 inches of snow that came down in about a 24-hour period of time. What really impacted me about that event is the tremendous damage that the snow resulted in from all of that weight on the trees. There were, including myself, people without power for well over 5 days. That's probably the biggest event that I worked. The biggest winter event I had been in was something called the Blizzard of '77 in Buffalo, New York. That was a 5-day all-out blizzard that stranded the city, and it actually resulted in near 30 deaths. Many of those people were trapped in their cars and either suffered hypothermia or were asphyxiated. That has always stuck with me. So from the winter side, it's been some pretty rough events.
So, Tom, this is Brian. I see that we both share having worked at the Olympics. Interestingly enough, you worked at Salt Lake City and I worked in Atlanta.
Well,
so how was it doing the Winter Olympics out there in Salt Lake City?
Well, I'll step back and tell you that that I also worked at the Atlanta Olympics, but I wasn't on the team with you. I was with the bunch of 5 people who were out doing the marine venues in Savannah. And
okay, yeah, the Savannah contingent.
Yes, and actually I was a little disappointed when I was first selected that I was going to be out there, but afterwards realized I ended up with those people right in the Olympic Village in Savannah, right off near Tybee Island. It was a tremendous experience.
Yeah.
And you know, as you probably can recount as well, because the meteorology gets down to not just what we refer to as a mesoscale, but you're down to micro scale. I mean,
yes,
right? You're dealing with just one event or venue, and you know, in my situation in forecasting winter weather, one of the venues that was exceptionally difficult to predict for was the cross-country venue. My gosh, you know, when you're cross-country skiing, a 1 or 2 degree difference in temperature can have a tremendous impact on the surface of the snow. Athletes have to wax their skis in certain ways. In the downhill events, when you, and these guys are absolutely crazy, when you come down that jump and you take off flying, you know, a 3 to 5 degree difference in the wind speed can have tremendous impacts on these athletes. So,
yeah.
You know, as you probably had as well, I was introduced to weather on such a small scale that it was a tremendous challenge to try to even approximate exactly what was going to happen. And you know, we're making strides in that. We continue to with higher resolution numerical models and much better meso networks of data to help us fine-tune our forecast. But it was a great experience. I'm sure it was for you as well.
Oh yeah, one of the biggest or one of the smallest warnings we ever had to issue was dew warnings, because believe it or not, at Stone Mountain, Georgia, there where they had the bicycle races, those tracks are practically vertical, and when the bicyclists come around, if there's even just the smallest amount of dew, it could spell complete disaster for them. And it was like that was a very big challenge, trying to keep them safe and forecast when that would dry off or when it would form. So yes, there were a lot of different venues, and I was glad we didn't have to deal with your venue down there too, on top of the different venues we had.
It was interesting. I mean, I found it fascinating. I remember one day, a thunderstorm popped up very quickly on the sea breeze and was going to impact the sailing event there, and it was interesting. And I'll tell this real quick story here. We were sitting there, two National Weather Service forecasters, and working the radar at the time were two researchers. And the researchers, who didn't have much experience in pulling the trigger on a warning, just sat there and were in awe over the development of this thunderstorm. At one point, my coworker from the National Weather Service and I looked at each other, and we finally pushed the chair and essentially said, "When are you going to issue the warning? We got to let people know." And they actually got out of their chairs, and we jumped in and sat down and pulled the trigger and got the warning out to get the sailboats off the water. So, and that's an interesting aspect of being an operational forecaster. Rick may chime in on this as well. It's and the broadcast, all the broadcasters as well. You can watch this weather and watch everything unfolding and try to understand it, but at some point you've got to pull the trigger. You've got to decide whether you're going to issue that warning or whether it's going to be crying wolf. And that's one of the biggest challenges when you're working in what I'll refer to in a respectful way as a life-saving operation.
Yes, you're absolutely right. It's always a big challenge.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so while we got everybody on the horn, let's talk last week, okay? And for those that are watching, there's a screen share of a post written for the Capital Weather Gang, the Washington Post. This was back on April 27th, and the headline is "Tuesday's Severe Weather Bust is a Communication Wake-Up Call." And this was a situation where the SPC guys, I want to say 6-7 days in advance, I forget exactly how many days, they initially posted a risk. So this was a week of hype and build-up and everything else. And a lot of people believe that the event was a bust. And it goes to show all these graphics coming from the private sector and from NOAA, and it particularly calls out a TV station in Oklahoma City where they've got these, numbers like this DEFCON thing, the Torcon thing, and like Kevin says, this horse must be out of the barn, and this is my concern. So the Weather Channel does a DEFCON, the local guys do a DEFCON. One guy's got an 8, one guy's got a 3, one guy's got a 9. It's going to make people's head explode. But the bottom line is, down at the bottom of this article, it says, this is the essence of the problem. Too many conflicting messages.
Right.
Too much noise. It's in these uncertain, life-threatening events that the weather community needs to come together to deliver a consistent outlook and communicate uncertainty. So, Kevin and Rick, you guys were kind of in the middle of this. What are your thoughts? Was it a bust, and is there confusion?
No and yes. No,
explain.
Oh, you want an explanation? It depends on your definition of a bust. I mean, if you look at, there's different things you can verify. Did the moderate risk that the SPC had on their day one outlook verify? Absolutely. The number of tornado reports, the number of hail reports, the number of significant hail reports. And the top of that article that Angela wrote for the Capital Weather Gang is a map that shows the verification of that outlook. So that's one way to look at it.
Pretty darn good.
It did. Yeah, it captured the bulk of the reports, and so in that way it was good. The word outbreak was thrown around a lot. Was it an outbreak? Well, and I may be the dumb one on the panel here, but I'm not even sure what an outbreak is, to be honest. That's why I don't like to use the term. We didn't use it in any official product or graphic that I know of. Somebody will probably find one now, but so we didn't. I don't like to use the term because it has so many definitions. Does it mean 6 tornadoes, 10 tornadoes? There's been over 25 tornadoes reported now on April 26th. The Tulsa office has been surveying, I think, around the clock, and they just continue to find tornadoes. So there was a fair number of tornadoes. But I think to most people, if you're thinking an outbreak, I don't think of 25 EF0, EF1 spin up QLCS type things as a tornado outbreak. That's not what I think a lot of people think of. So, and then finally the PDS watch. The PDS watch, I think, is the one thing that, I'm not speaking for anybody, and I'm speaking for myself personally here. I think if we could turn back time, as Cher would say, that might be the one thing I might change that we did. Everything else, I feel pretty good about our particular forecast and the service we provide in our office. But what did people outside think? I don't know for sure.
All right, Kevin, what say you?
Well, I think, as I mentioned earlier, we had a fair amount of anxiety in this town. There were, it's a small town. I know of one business that closed hours early. It was a Starbucks, and they shut down and put something, a sign on the door that said, we care about our customers, we don't want you out and about, and things like that. And some people respected that, and others mocked it, which was unfortunate. But there was a fever pitch going into that morning. The event itself, I think we didn't get, that moderate risk was pulled south through the day, and we were sort of on the western edge of it. We ended up being spared largely in my DMA, I think due in large part to, there was a cap, but a sort of a mid-level stratus deck developed late morning and hung until kind of early to mid-afternoon. And there were a few breaks, but there just wasn't enough, there wasn't enough sunshine gasoline to start it for us. And so we had some severe weather, but not, to the degree that was advertised, not on this television station, but in social media and in the general, area. It just gets overheated that far out. So I still go back to this horrible saying that I think that horse is out of the barn. I don't think we're going to fix it.
And let me jump back in real.
Yeah, go, Rick. Go.
Well, I was just going to follow up with what Kevin said. I ever since May of 2013, with our devastating tornadoes that we saw, all the fatalities and the injuries and issues, every severe weather event, the anxiety level, the discomfort level, the fear level is higher. And just when I think it can't get any higher, it was at an all-time high, I think, on Tuesday. We had school systems for the first time since May of 2013. We had a major school system in the Oklahoma City metro area close school totally, not just, hey, you don't have to come if you don't want to. They locked the doors on Monday. They made the decision that we're closing tomorrow. And that every little action like that contributed to the fear. People thought, oh my God, they've never done this before. It must really be bad. And every little thing that just amplified it. And I've never seen it like that. We had people calling the office. We had people panicked on social media, just who were people literally saying they were in fear for their lives. And it was I hate it. I mean, I just hate to see people like that. And I've never seen it that bad before. So it was at a new level.
So, and again, we could debate, was a PDS watch needed? Did it verify completely? That's not my greatest concern. We're all going to foul the forecast up. That's just life in this business. So the main question I want to tackle here, it involves the hyperbole on the part of everybody here. And again, I'll show you some of the graphics from some of the stations, and I know Rick can't comment on this because he's there, but now you've got the stations in Oklahoma, at least this one, doing their own DEF CON, where they've got 5. And I would assume it's the same thing the Weather Channel's doing. And how they come up with these numbers, I don't know. We know how the STP is made because that's the industry standard. You can see exactly how the sausage is made. But I think they had a 10 on that day. The graphic I'm showing on television has a 5. And the other odd thing about that graphic is why they're still using F numbers. We went to the EF scale, 10 years ago? I don't understand that. And then you got these graphics. That makes my head explode. He's got a 0. And for people, most people listen to the show, and I know you can't see what's on the screen, but this is a station that's got, every day it's got a number, severe threat and tornado threat. And one day he's got a 1, a 4, a 6, a 2, a 1, a 3, a 1. And to me, this is new. And the other problem that I've been talking about for a long time, it's the maps are inconsistent, the convective outlooks are different, the terminology is different, and it's different within the television broadcasters, it's different within the National Weather Service. And the question is there any hope? Am I fighting a losing battle? Can we ever send out a unified message? Or is, like Kevin says, it's all gone down the tubes?
It is, because one of the bullet points that is going around from these consulting firms right now is that there is little ability on the part of the average user to differentiate between television stations. So if that's the message that is being presented by the consultants, there's no way that you're going to come rolling in and say, hey, you need to all be using the same colors and the same terminology. That's not going to happen.
Right. And then let me say this, too. I am not faulting the local meteorologists. Maybe some of them are at fault, but who knows where this is coming from? It might be coming from a consultant. It might be coming from a news director. It might be coming from a corporate regional news director. Who knows where this mandate is coming from? I'm not indicting individual meteorologists at these television stations, but it just seems to me is that it's every year and every month it gets increasingly more confusing and chaotic. There is no unified message, and that was the point of the Washington Post article, the Capital Weather Gathering article. And in my market, we are trying our best, and we've talked. All the chiefs have gotten together. You got some markets where the chief meteorologists won't even get in the same room together. So I'm going to go around the horn and say, is there any hope? And let's start with Aubrey, because Aubrey, you're kind of looking at this from a distance. Is there any hope in your opinion?
I would hope that there is, but I feel like we need something like NWS or SPC or just a national meteorology network to basically come out and kind of head this thing up. And I know it's sad that, as meteorologists we would need that, but I think if someone were to call it, a problem on that scale, then maybe we all can become on the same page. I mean, even in our area tonight, I noticed, a difference in colors, and, it's obviously it's not as bad as in other areas, but I would like to think that we could unify.
Right. And some people say, I don't want the government telling me what to say. I understand that. There are times we are all going to disagree a little bit with maybe some of the SPC products or whatever, but during these tornado situations, I still say we need to be on the same page. In our market, we have a little private weather service chat. This is not for everybody. This is just for the chief Mets, the WCM, and the MIC to sit down, and we all work together on what forecast package will be coming out later that day. And this is primarily for winter weather, because we got a problem with that too. But that's an example of where we can work together and come up with a common solution. We are going to communicate it differently. We are going to have different looking maps. Now, the colors are going to be the same, but the maps will look different. The presentation is different. People will still choose who they're going to watch based on their favorite meteorologist, if you will. But we've got on these life-threatening situations. And now you've got guys issuing their own warnings. Kevin, do you do that in Wichita Falls?
No. Does Sinclair know that you're communicating with the other guys in town?
I don't know, and I don't care. If they got a problem with that, and we don't go in there trading secrets. I don't go in there and tell them company secrets. All we're doing, it's like a bunch of first graders.
Yeah, but you talk about heads exploding. See, you have achieved a different level within what you can do and what you can get away with than the rest of us can. Now, will Sinclair come in and take some of that down? Who knows? But you're at a different level because you're just at a different level than the rest of us. We don't have that sort of clout to be able to do that. There are issues here where I would love to sit down, and we've got kind of a weird market where the NBC station, us, and the CBS station are in Wichita Falls. The ABC. No, CBS and NBC are in Wichita Falls. Mm-hmm. The ABC station is up in Lawton, which is an hour's drive north of here. And there's a lot of real estate in between those, and it's very difficult from a forecast standpoint. But just, even sitting down to have a cup of coffee between the three chiefs would be a feat. But there are things here that have evolved over a number of years that I would like to see pulled back a little bit, just like you're talking about. But boy, that's going to be a tall order to be able to sit down and execute that.
But in here we've got Sinclair, Hearst, Media General, and who am I missing here? But either these are big companies, and no, we don't talk about it. We didn't talk about getting together, and again, there were no secrets. All we're talking about is map colors and call to action statements, and agreeing not to do these idiotic these indices, proprietary indices. And again, somebody might come in and force us to do this, and we can't control that. But I think our hearts are all beating together.
But that's also led by you and the position that you have in this market. Not to take anything away from anybody else, it's nice that they've all come into the fold, but that's never going to happen in Oklahoma City. You go back to the Mike Morgan show, and I've said this a couple of times. In that market, it seems to me that it has become, and every time I say this, I see heads on the panel nod, including the guests, that it has become, if not of equal importance, greater importance, the show that they're putting on as opposed to the mission. And you're not going to put that back in, especially when you got the consultants out there egging you on, going, well, nobody really knows the difference between your television stations. This is you said 1,000 times, this is a dying business model. And when you're a caged animal and your back's up against the wall, you start to do crazy things.
Speaking of crazy, did you guys see this one?
Oh my!
Yes.
Did
I interrupt? Did you finish going around the panel as to whether there was hope?
I'm about to do that, but I just again, this is where it's just getting out of hand here. I mean, Rick, what are your thoughts? Rick can only say so much.
It's long out of hand.
Is there hope? I always have to think there's hope. I can't just give up and say there's not. Now, realistically, we will never have everybody using the same colors and the same words and the same numbers.
The question is why not? This is not brain surgery. If you're not willing to come in and cooperate on map colors, you're just a butt. I mean, you are a big bad butt. And you don't need to be in this business.
But the consultant just said that they can't tell the difference between you. So what are you going to do to go to differentiate yourself?
Because you're good. You deliver it better than anybody else. You work harder on social media. You develop this big audience that's faithful to you. You develop these people that want to come follow you, and you become the voice of authority because you work hard. You're always there for them. You're engaging with the audience, and they will come to you and follow you. That's how you beat them, is that you just work hard.
This is part of the discussion that Nate wanted to start after that Medium post that you wrote the other day.
Yeah, he got all PO'd about saying. I think part of the
no, he's not PO'd. We're trying to again. I think you're in rarefied air these days. You know I love you, but you're in rarefied air, and there's you up there, and there's the rest of us, and the rest of us have different pressures and different things that we have to deal with that we can't get to where you are because you started before everybody else. You were James Spann long before social media. Social media just made you James Spann on a national audience. because I started with you. You were out there every day doing speeches. I remember the cookies. I remember the wild-eyed news people coming up into the studio when the 3 days a year that you didn't have a cookie from a school going, okay, I remember those days, and you're no different, with the possible exception of continuous tornado coverage, than you were back in the day. But now there's a national presence to you because of social media. But that's not going to help. And see, this goes back to that kid again. No one would tell that kid that took his life to go work harder because it will get better.
And again, what's going to happen? I want to hear Tom's comments from a national perspective. But as we often have a problem here, I'm the lead because I think we have Substance Awareness Week tomorrow, or drizzle or something here. So I'm the lead on the 10 o'clock. So because I'm the guy with the buttons here, I've got to roll the 2 recorded segments. We got Professor Peters and Tony Rice, and we need to get some email because Aubrey's got to have a pile of that. So if we have time, and Aubrey's got to go on television too. So
all right, wait. You got to roll the tracky intro.
Now, WeatherBrains is tracking the tracker. We track what the consultants track, so you can track along with us. Does that make sense? Here's WeatherBrains lead tracker, Kevin Selly.
All right, this kills me to do it. This is the last of the trackies, and it's going to Aubrey because she used tracking.
No.
Pick of the week on Facebook. I love you, but you get the last trackie, and that's an honor. Okay, go on.
I did not write it in my defense.
No, that's what they said on the news. They pitched to me on the 5 o'clock news. James Spann is tracking showers and thunderstorms.
Yeah. They say that to me all the time.
I will think about Kevin every time I hear that now.
Yep.
No, but this award is not going away. Kevin might let it go, but I'm not going to let it go.
Aubrey's not going to want to come down and see us in Oklahoma City now because I gave her a trackie.
I'm not going to let it go.
Okay. Apparently, I'm being summoned then.
I didn't say it, Aubrey. You can still come see me.
Listen, somebody's got to run this show. Brian, you got to run it because Bill Murray had to go somewhere. But coming out of these spots, we need to do email and picks of the week and all that. But I want to finish up the discussion. I want to hear what Tom has to say about confusion and chaos and this just idiotic state we're in the weather enterprise with this hyperbole.
Are we in one of these deals where you could edit in the segments afterwards and let Tom talk for the 8 minutes that we have before? Because I'd like to hear this too, but I got to go. Can we edit in the other segments? Haven't we done that before?
Oh, sure. Y'all just keep going. We'll edit them in.
All right. Okay. You're on, Tom.
Hey, I feel your pain. I've only been in the TV side for about 3-4 years, but in seeing what has happened on a local scale and the proliferation of everybody trying to develop their own indices, and we've been part of this with winter storm naming. It's had a little different flavor to it. I think the first thing is what you are doing now, bringing this to the forefront and being able to discuss this and hopefully get people together so that we can have some type of uniformity amongst everybody is a great first step. But I'll tell you what, I still, the cat's out of the bag. I feel the same way that a lot of you do. And from a meteorological standpoint, if you brought all us meteorologists together, I think we could absolutely come to some conclusion about what guidelines or what rules to follow. But unfortunately, from a production side, a TV side, and a rating side, I think they're the ones that are running the game now, and I think it's going to be difficult to go back down this path.
So do you think that TorCon was a product of the marketing people at the Weather Channel?
No, I don't. I absolutely don't. I think that was knowing Greg Forbes and knowing what he wanted to be able to do on a national scale and bring some uniformity to the way he produced his forecasts, his potential for severe weather. That I strongly believe was born from Greg himself as the meteorologist and a researcher in a way to describe to the public in a simple way what the potential would be for tornadic weather within a certain radius, a certain number of miles. I think that all came, and I'm almost certain this all came from Greg. I'll digress for a second and go to the winter storm naming side. that was something that was brought to me 2 months after I joined the Weather Channel by meteorologists. It was not brought from a marketing department or a PR department or any of those entities. That was a concerted effort by a group of meteorologists here to try to bring together a one-stop shop where we could identify a high-impact storm on a national scale and be able to tag that storm and follow it as it moved across the country. So I am, I'm digressing a bit, but getting back to where you are right now with all of the local stations in severe weather coming up with all of these indices, it has to be brought under control. And I think that the more that we discuss this among the meteorological community, maybe we can get one voice that can help to at least pull some of this back into the bag and standardize a lot of what we're doing.
Brian, you're in charge now, I think.
Okay. Oh, James stepped out. He did, didn't he?
Yeah.
Okay.
A minute here.
Okay. Picks of the week. Kevin, you want to go first since you've got to leave here?
I have a new a friend of mine, Mike Prendergast, who is a wonderful chaser and a friend, has a new thing. It's a coming television show called Storm Warriors, and the website is stormwarriors.tv, and he is chasing around the plains getting that show ready. But their website's real good looking, and it got a lot of good information on it.
All righty. And Tom, you'll be last, but do you know what the picks of the week are? Okay.
Yeah, I do, and I got a couple.
Okay, no, you can only have one. Okay, Rick Smith, how about you?
My pick of the week is it's kind of a simple site, and people may have seen it before, but on the Storm Prediction Center website, they've got a nice section that it describes their products. I think there's a lot of confusion sometimes. A lot of people associate a moderate risk with tornadoes, for example. Moderate risk from April 26th really had nothing to do with tornadoes. It was based on the hail probability. So you can go there and actually see the probability tables, read what a PDS watch is, read about all the products. There's some details there I think that will help people understand more some of the behind the scenes things that go on in those products. So I think it's a good read.
I think it is. And by the way, Rick, I could not find the word outbreak on that site.
I couldn't either. So
Aubrey, I know that you've got to do the weather shortly, so you're muted, so go right ahead.
Yes, mine is the time lapse of a severe storm over Harrisonburg last night that was captured by a drone. Very cool for Virginia. A lot of times, even if we get this kind of structure, it's just not captured, or it's the rain moves in pretty quickly and stuff. So really cool view of a severe storm over downtown Harrisonburg in the middle of Virginia.
And I haven't seen the whole thing
for anywhere.
Yeah, I haven't seen the whole thing, but the part I've seen so far is fascinating.
Yeah, it's definitely
cool. I'll pick up Bill Murray's was Buffalo Flakes in honor of Tom. So, Tom, you can't even choose that one. James is picking one in line with Aubrey, and that is drone footage of a tornado-warned storm near Washington, D.C. So,
hey, Brian?
A little bit, yes.
I got less than 2 minutes, but I wanted to ask Tom, since you made the comment about the naming, the winter storm naming thing, and you were sort of there at the dawn of that, or had just come in during the beginning of that. And of course now I've lost my train of thought. Did you feel like there was any effort, because I think maybe this had even been discussed at some point in time, but I think the general idea was if we wanted to try that, it would have been this giant rock in the middle of the road that was NOAA not wanting to move forward on that. Was there any effort, do you think? Was there some discussion of, hey, if we just go, maybe we can unstick this? Does that make sense as a question?
Well, yeah, I think you might be asking if we should have contacted NOAA ahead of time or
did you, or whatever, yeah.
Or did we? And there was a little of a catch-22 in trying to roll this program out and bring NOAA into the program as well. They were contacted before we rolled it out, but we as an entity were going forward with that regardless.
And before it rolled out, did they say no thanks or don't do it or any of that?
They were against it. Okay. Yes.
All right, thanks.
All right, and let's see. My pick is the Washington Post Capitol Weather Gang. They've got a really cool one where the television meteorologist is on the air and a Windows 10 update photobombs the show. I love that. That's got to be great. Definitely need to postpone those updates. And Tom, that brings us to you. What is your pick or picks?
Okay, so I love eye candy. I love MODIS satellite imagery. The site, I hope this is a pick, but the site I like to go to is NASA's Worldview site. If you Google NASA Worldview, you get a daily image of the satellite imagery around the globe at very high resolution, and you can go back every single day for a little over 2 years now, just to get a beautiful view of anywhere you want to go on the face of this planet to see high-resolution images. So NASA Worldview, that's my pick.
Yeah, that's a very good one. I'm surprised none of us have picked that in the past. That's a good one. All righty. Well, I think all the meteorologists are gone. Well, not all the meteorologists. There's the three of us that do not have television shows to attend to this evening. But WeatherBrains is a weekly podcast that occurs typically on Mondays. Not always. We sometimes do go for other dates, and we will at the end of this month. I'm not sure about all the shows that are coming up, and I want to mention, by the way, the WeatherBrains newsletter, Skywritings, will be going out this evening. As a matter of fact, it's scheduled to hit the airwaves. We've topped 500 subscribers to our newsletter, so we appreciate everybody who's subscribing. There are still 4 states that we do not have. We just recently added Hawaii, so that was nice to take them off the list of no subscribers. Tom, I want to thank you so much for joining us, especially since it was all very last minute. And maybe we can have you back before next winter or something, or during the winter.
I'd love to be there.
All righty. As you can tell, I am definitely not James Spann. Have too much hair. But that will do it for WeatherBrains for this episode, which I believe is episode number 537. Hard to believe we've done anything 537 times, but we have. If you have comments, questions, concerns about WeatherBrains, you can send them to email@weatherbrains.com. The email goes to all of us that are part of the WeatherBrains gang. So without further ado, I want to thank everybody for being here tonight and hope that you have a great week and Godspeed. And I guess Kevin's audio is definitely going. And I can't do it. So, Rick, thank you.
Thank you, guys. Tom, appreciate you being here. Great stuff.
Not be watching for your back door. You may just have the WeatherBrains gang show up there someday.
Absolutely. I'll give you a great tour, so just drop me an email.
We've been trying to work out a crossover episode. We've talked to Marshall and all the Weather Geeks producers about trying to do something, so you never know.
Oh, I'd love to do that with you. That'd be great.
That'd be awesome.
That would be awesome. Well, thank you for being on again. Maybe we can have you back more in your season.
That'd be great. Thanks, guys.
Okay. Thanks, Tom.
See y'all.
Good night.
Woke up to someone shooting in her house who left in a small black car. There were no injuries, and the homeowner told authorities she had no idea who would shoot in her house. Officers say they discovered possible bullet fragments on the floor, bullet holes in the windows, and empty shell casings near Avenue I and Polk. If you have any information about these crimes or any other felony crime, call Crime Stoppers 24 hours a day. That number is 322-9888. You never have to give your name, but if your information leads to the arrest and board approval, you could earn up to $1,000.
A Tillman County High School senior is arrested after authorities executed a drug sting operation last week. Harrison Brown is charged with distribution of a controlled and dangerous substance. According to Jackson County District Attorney Ken Darby, a person called the Tillman County Sheriff to inform authorities that Brown had asked about extracting THC oil from marijuana. Last Tuesday, agents of the District 3 Drug Task Force, the Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics, and the Tillman County Sheriff's Office executed a sting with the informant after arranging to meet Brown at the Granville High School ball field to buy 1.5 ounces of marijuana for $400. After the exchange, law enforcement officials said they stopped Brown 3 blocks away. They reported finding more marijuana along with $400. Brown is now in the Tillman County Detention Center.
A 29-year-old Wichita Falls woman is jailed after authorities say she broke into and refused to leave her ex-boyfriend's home, assaulted him.
Wow. Looks like it's a wrap. I get to hear the last part while I'm driving tomorrow on the audio version. All right, guys, thank you all for watching. We'll be on Song of the Night here in a minute on my Twitter feed if you want to follow that. The theme this week, songs, it's one-word title song week. In the title of the song, just one word. So we'll see you guys next week. Thank you all for watching. Y'all have a great week. Bye-bye.